collections during the pandemic. Unfortunately, that happened to us, right? But still, this didn't affect so much our, let's say, intentions and our mission. And so we still functioning, right? We want to serve our users. We want to perform our, let's say, responsibilities, right? Our duties. So I think that we can start, and today we will cover almost all aspects that might help our colleagues, again, to reopening libraries, to be efficient, to be effective in our work. So let me introduce our first speaker. This is going to be Raymond Poon from Alder Graduate School of Education. And so regarding the mechanics, probably I should mention this again before I start introducing our speakers. So you have the right to share your screen, and you don't have to even, we will not moderate your slides, your presentation. You can run them yourself. And if something doesn't work, just let me know, okay? So please welcome our first speaker, Raymond Poon from Adler Graduate School of Education, the United States. He is going to discuss how they manage library services during COVID-19 and the general challenges faced by the school and academic libraries in the United States. The topic of his presentation is Rethinking Inequity in Libraries During COVID-19. So Raymond, please, the stage is yours.
Great, thank you, Darya. I cannot share my screen. I think you still have, you have to stop sharing.
Okay, just a second.
Well, as Darya is preparing for that, thank you everyone for coming to this session. I'd like to thank the organizers for putting this conference together. I haven't had a chance to go to the sessions yet, but I hope to do so soon. So I'm going to share this. It's not letting me also allow share your screen. I wonder if it's...
Raymond, it seems that you can share your screen. If the system asks you that host is sharing, you can just agree and proceed with your screen sharing. This must work.
You know, I think because I had a system upgrade, there is an issue right now. So how about maybe I will go, I may have to start and come back into the room. I apologize. Can you have somebody else, the next person to go?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We can do this. It's not a problem. So I think that right now, instead of Ray, oh yeah, we can see the presentation. So great.
Thank you. Yeah, there was some security thing. I just upgraded the software. It happened.
Perfect.
But, let me present this, and I just want to let you know we're also not able to share our video, so I just let you know we're unable to start our own cameras. So if you don't want us on the camera, that's okay. I wanted to again thank the conference organizers for putting this together. I think it's really timely and important for all of us to think about how COVID-19 has really ripped the fabric of opportunities in higher education and also the school settings that has long ramifications that I think will continue to really, unfortunately, pose more barriers. And this is a time to really rethink when we talk about inequity, the sense of fairness, sense of justice, and what can libraries do to really think about that. So I am going to just give you a general overview of what I've been doing at my workplace. And I'll also be sharing some of the examples that I've encountered across the conversations within the United States. So I work at the Alder Graduate School of Education. It's a teacher preparations program in the Bay Area of California. It's a one-year master's program, very intensive, focused on preparing graduate students of education to be teachers. And as the solo librarian for the school and academic library, supporting teachers who teach kindergarten, which is 5 years old, to 12th grade, the end of high school, they are all preparing to be teachers in public schools. And my job is to prepare them, support them with information literacy, research needs, but also working with the faculty, right, with research. And one of the things that I've been interested in looking at is the digital divide. I had completed my dissertation on looking at how the digital divide impacts ethnic communities, particularly those that identify African American, Black, Asian American, Pacific Islander, Hispanic, Latinx groups, and Native American groups in the United States, particularly in California. And so prior to COVID-19, we had found that obviously this has been huge effects on those communities compared to the counterparts, which are white groups, white communities predominantly, who are not as affected. But in some ways, we look at socioeconomic divides, and of course, it's always coming down to money. Can people afford to pay for internet access? But really, it came down to choice and accessibility and options. And a lot of them who were affected by the digital divide, they really preferred going to their public libraries. It was so important because it gave them an opportunity to socialize. It gave them money, meaning it saved them money rather, because it was a way that they don't need to subscribe to the internet. And so when I started discovering that, I learned that the qualitative methods that I did with these participants in the interviews prior to COVID-19, literally around January and February, right before the shutdown happened in the United States, across the different parts of cities and rural areas too, that the participants were really hopeful, right, that the libraries were there to support them. Now, during COVID, it's a little bit different. During COVID, a lot of things are shutting down. We see the digital divide not just preventing the basic access, which is accessing to computers and internet in the libraries, the public libraries, the schools, the universities, but also more specifically, the issues of accessing skills, resources. These patrons, a couple of them I followed up with, were really struggling. They could not feel that it was safe to go to the parking lot. They could not feel it was safe to go to use their public library anymore because it was closed, but there were other options, but they did not feel safe at all. So it was a lot of constraints going on. But now there was nobody to help them access this. Now, this is another issue that I think a lot of people don't think about. There are technology skills that are really important that we did not think about. We're living in not normal times. Everybody is being affected and impacted. And how do we deal with that? And so I think one of the issues when we think about digital divide and COVID-19, in my context, we think about the teachers and students. We think about the issues of accessibility. Just because we have technology, are they accessible? Do they support students who might have learning differences, perhaps visual or hearing differences? And what kind of impact does it have, right? Because they are not in a socialized environment where they were previously. And to really think about that impact on both the students and teachers, and of course the parents. But for us, the graduate students, they are not really well prepared in the beginning to teach online. It's an online program that I am the librarian supporting graduate students, but they are also co-teachers, and they're also learning how to teach online. So my dean, 1 month ago, asked me if I can do research for a project that they're working on. This is prior to opening the semester. He wanted to know, can you find the best practices research on synchronous learning for kindergarten students who are 5, 6 years old? What is the best practice to support them during live teaching? And this was unbelievable because there was no research about this. So this is an interesting dilemma, but also one that affects the teachers and the students in very myriad ways. Right now, we are seeing also a lot of students who don't have access, particularly students of low income and students who are identifying as Black and Brown, Indigenous communities. And this has a lot of impact when they don't have access to the internet to pursue their learning like everybody else into certain contexts. Now, what do we do? Well, we ended up obviously thinking about hotspots, and I'm sure my colleagues can talk about this. We think about devices that loan out Wi-Fi. But if we are limited in resources, we think about our public libraries. Some public libraries in the city of California, parts of cities of California, like Los Angeles, they lend out hotspots. They have some sort of support, but it's really challenging. And I think when it's happening right now, you need to think about external funding, like who will provide that support for your institution outside of your own. And it doesn't have to be at the government or state level, because there's some challenges here within the United States sorting that out, but externally, who are your partners to provide that? Now, the issue right now we're also facing is copyright and course materials. Copyright is definitely one that I think every librarian has been talking about for the past 6 months, over 7 months, because it's one that constrains our access to resources. When we're dealing with content that we are trying to make accessible, trying to share because of the situation, of the circumstances that we cannot use our libraries, we have to work with in the context of copyright. Yet copyright has been a little bit challenging, and we have to think about other ways, fair use, Creative Commons, thinking about ways to really support our students. In my context, the library is 100% digital, yet there are ways we need to ensure that our course materials, the texts, are also available, that are OCR'd, accessible, and also in compliance with copyright. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I'll just mention that textbooks is also a big problem next to the issue of copyright. Textbooks, I think, has posed the commercial interest against the learning interest. Now, the textbook issues we're facing is that our faculty have chosen ones that are really great for their courses, yet there are inherent problems with the textbook industry. Some of them might include the lack of diversity in the publications of textbooks. Others might be the lack of accessibility options for textbooks. So if you wanted a textbook that has to be in digital format, it may not be sold because of the commercial publisher. It may not be sold because they want one-on-one usage, and it creates problems because our students are predominantly first-generation students, first in their family to go to grad school and get that degree, first in their family to be a teacher, and maybe in low income too, and predominantly graduate students of color. And so when we have these barriers, it really puts another constraint on what we do. So I work closely with our faculty in thinking and devising strategies of open educational resources, known as OER, open access materials, but really utilizing what we can get with library resources to ensure that they substitute and not require necessarily textbooks. And as a result, we think about important services like document delivery services. It's other ways includes interlibrary loan. It has been increasing a lot, scanning, making sure the course materials are available. Yet we need to keep in mind within copyright, when you are scanning materials, they're only for that one particular person, one-to-one use. So there's a lot of compliance issues, but yet we have to be careful of how we provide that kind of resource and compliance too. Now, as I mentioned, there are a lot of interesting dilemmas, but there's also a lot of potentials. So one of them includes thinking about what we can do with the issues that COVID-19 has posed in learning for our higher education and for our school settings. So when this hopefully is a silver lining where we can think about what are the best practices for synchronous learning for kindergarten students, or for students who are teachers and they're preparing to teach AP physics, advanced placement physics, college level physics in high school online, where the labs are virtual. There are no precedents for any of this. So we are experimenting as we're going. We are keeping notes, as everybody else should be, documenting what we're doing, and then hopefully coming out with best practices, because certainly this issue will only improve. We can only improve together when we work together. Teamwork is dream work, as they say. So now I leave you with this. This is sort of like a final slide here. As I mentioned, the normal times are not really normal times. I think there are, unfortunately, people who might try to fit in this online learning as normal times, just treat it as online learning. It is actually very different from what normal times look like when you're doing online learning. What we should be doing is being more compassionate. We need to exercise that more empathy and understand that it's okay if students are not fulfilling their works or turning assignments on. There might be a lot of circumstances we don't know. And I think from what I've seen and gathered, a lot of lack of compassion is still being exercised because people still want to treat it like normal times. Unfortunately, it's not. So I leave this with that. And with what we're doing across the United States, people are still really struggling. As I talk to school librarians, other school teachers, as well as faculty and academic librarians, trying to figure out and sort out the issues of service, resources, and also copyright issues and compliance. 24/7 is certainly one way they want to keep support of different resources and services. So there are a lot of tools out there. I know there are chat services that run 24/7, as I've seen before, Ask a Librarian service, but also there are other resources we subscribed to recently, including tutor.com, which provides writing tutor support 24/7. It's not necessarily ideal, I think, because it might enable some of our students to use them at 1 or 2 a.m. because it might be, it's good support, but it's also, you know, it comes with a lot of other challenges because we're enabling that behavior when we don't want to think about, you know, like how students are studying and doing their work so late in the evening. But of course, you know, this is a challenge that everyone is experiencing, but we need to continue learning from each other, and hopefully we'll learn that the inequities that exist in society, in our community, can be rethought differently and to be more integral to what we do today. So that's all I want to say. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to all of you. I did want to mention that I was happy to have visited Kazakhstan 3 years ago for a research project, and had heard about this conference. So I'm really glad to have participated. Thank you again, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ray. That was really great overview of the services and supporting our communities, right? So we will have the chance to discuss the questions that you raised and the thought-provoking, I think. So now let's continue with the presentations. And unfortunately, we are missing today Hazia Sakaria from University of Malaya Library. So that's why let me invite Sandy Avila from the University of Central Florida, the United States. So she's going to introduce us to the new remote services models, and again, the opening of the new library spaces, the making formal library opening. So Sandy, please.
Yes, hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. You should be able to see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present today. As my co-partner, co-worker, Ben Basco mentioned, it is about a little after midnight here, maybe a little bit after that even. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and we're very happy to be here today. So this opening slide is actually a picture of our UCF library, and today I will be presenting Navigating the New Normal at the UCF Libraries, a spotlight on our reopening process. Again, I'm Sandy Avila. I'm the science librarian at the University of Central Florida Libraries, and we are in the United States in Orlando, Florida. A quick outline of what I'll present. I'd like to look a little bit into explaining who is UCF, where are we located, about our libraries, and then kind of discussing some quickly about our COVID-19 response on campus. Then taking a look a little bit into our reopening considerations early on, all of the things that the library and our libraries have been considering, some things that Ray already brought up, and so we'll go into a little bit more detail about those. And then of course, a spotlight on our new normal. And actually, before I get into looking at the specifics of our institution, I thought it might be interesting to kind of see, using Google Earth, where we are in comparison to each other. For anybody who actually is in Kazakhstan, we would have loved to have been able to have participated. We would be at the NU library. So as we're zooming in, and then in comparison to us in the United States, clear across the globe, we're going to take a trip there very quickly, where it's now, you know, again, a little bit after midnight. Our state here is in the yellow area. We'll zoom into our main campus library, the John C. Hitt Library, where Ben and I both work. We're in the center of campus in the middle of our metropolitan campus in Orlando, Florida. We're about 10 miles away from our newest campus of the UCF, which is in downtown. And as you can see here on this Google map for right now, our campus is so new, it's not even, it's still under construction when Google took this picture. And lastly, just to note where the comparison to Disney World and Universal Studios, we do have Rosen Library, our School of Hospitality Management, which is very close to Universal Studios, just for you all to get a comparison of a few of our campuses and how far away we are from you today. All right, so in looking at UCF in general, this is a little bit about us. We are one of 12 public institutions in our state. We are, again, 10 miles east of downtown, about 23 miles from the attractions. We are very much a tourist industry state. So the closures and having all of our tourism shut down in our state has really affected our economy. And we'll get into a little bit about that and some of those challenges. As of last fall, 2019, we had 69,525 students. We are one of the top 3 largest public institutions in the United States, so we're very large. And just recently, in the last couple of weeks, from US News and World Report, we were ranked top 20 as most innovative university in our country, as well as placed top 50 in best undergraduate teaching and undergraduate research. Now, looking a little bit internally into our libraries and staff, here are some statistics and numbers. We have 64 full-time library staff currently, about 37 full-time non-tenure track faculty librarians, of which where I fall into that, into this region, the faculty librarian. And we have 4 library administrators who are also librarian status. We have 8 campus libraries around Central Florida. Our main campus, which I noted, the main library is the John C. Hitt Library, which is the one I'm going to be focusing on in most of my discussions today. But we also have another curriculum materials center. It supports our education students located in our education complex building on the main campus. And then we have several other campus libraries throughout Central Florida to our several separate campuses that I've noted here. So this is one way, and one of the reasons why we have so many students. We have several campuses around the city. And looking a little bit into our institutional response to COVID, I wanted to point out a few things, just so everybody gets a context of how our institution is handling the COVID response. Very early on, we had very consistent messaging through emails and text alerts, keeping us up to date on how things are going on campus, who was closing, what was open, testing, all of these things. So we had very consistent messaging. We had testing centers at our garage campuses, like our parking garages were open for testing as a testing site for faculty, staff, students, and as well as the community. They would have to make an appointment and then they would drive in and get a COVID test in our parking garages. So it's very, very easy and efficient for our students and faculty and staff to get tested. We also had a unique messaging campaign that I'll show you a few images of in a few slides. We call it Armor Up Nights. Since we are the University of Central Florida, our logo is the Pegasus, and our mascot is a knight, like a physical knight from like the medieval times. So this idea of armoring up and using the shield to protect us as a way to introduce mask compliance and those kinds of things was a specific unique messaging that our university took on to address these issues. We also have specific contact tracing and tracers who are keeping us up to date and making sure our students and faculty are addressing and being kept in compliance with staying off campus if they have been testing positive for COVID, and just tracing back their contacts throughout the community. We also have a COVID-19 self-checker where you would, if you're going on campus, you would check in either on the app or through the website to ensure and to let others know at UCF that you are COVID-free before coming to campus and going to work. You would self-check every day. Now, recent additions, like literally as of today or yesterday, we had some new developments. One of them is that we now have a campus dashboard that weekly is being updated to let us know how many COVID-19 cases we have. Currently, I think we're about at 526, which is quite high, but at the same time, maybe not as high as in some places. We have now a new Armor Up Ambassador program where students are going around campus and actually sharing rewards and to help students realize that if they're staying healthy and complying with masks and doing social distancing, they'll get a reward. So that's a new unique way that we're getting students to help students keep in compliance. We now have random COVID-19 testing on campus. So students, faculty, and staff are being pulled at random to be tested, again, to keep us in compliance and to keep everyone's vigilance about coronavirus, being very aggressive about trying to ensure our safety. And the last thing is that we've had some testing enhancements. We've added rapid testing to the type of testing we're doing on campus for COVID. So this is just one of the images of one of our websites from UCF, our external, our institution. And this is part of that unique messaging and branding I was talking about, that armor up nights and, kind of what some of the, I guess, branding and messaging and posters and different flyers that you see around campus, wearing a face mask, washing your hands, and practicing social distancing, the things that we're still addressing with our students and our faculty who are on campus. Now, in looking at reopening considerations early on, pretty much in the middle of March, we were asked to basically go home, right? Everybody had to go remote in the middle of March. We basically were all remote for the most part, minus a few essential staff who were actually in the library. Small handful of people were necessary or deemed essential staff who were going to campus every day. Everyone else was at home. And so therefore, in looking at this, this idea of staying home, we had a few things to deal with, or many things, right? One of them was just in the way we spoke about adapting to fully remote service. We basically, I think at one point said, oh, our library was closed. And the university had asked us kindly to not use the word closed, but that we were instead remote. So just in the way that we would tell our messaging and what we posted on our websites, making sure people realize we're still here, we're not closed and closed off, but actually just adapting to a different model. So that was part of our continuity of library services, updating websites, creating library guides, and creating new portals of information to keep our students and faculty and community members aware of the situation. Now on April 25th is when school started again for the fall. And basically from the middle of the spring semester, all of summer, we were basically remote. Everybody was online, taking fully online classes. And then here came the beginning of the fall semester. And with that came some face-to-face options, some very small limited number of classes that would be open for students to come face-to-face on campus. So then the library was part of that essential building in place that had to be open to accommodate those students. So we had a lot of different things we had to accomplish before that August 25th opening date. And one of them was establishing a reopening task force team. So the library had several components, departmental people joined to create this team. From there, we had departmental task force created. So each individual department had a way that they could communicate the reopening of their spaces. And so therefore, every task force had an environmental scan as one of their projects. They had to be looking at what other libraries were doing in different states, within our state, and around the world. And as Ray already mentioned, copyright was a big concern. How are we maintaining and utilizing copyright properly in online classes? The streaming of online videos, how were they deemed appropriate to be used in classes? Access to electronic textbooks and resources. Some publishers were allowing for certain extensions and certain availability to everybody to have equal access to their databases and to their journals. So that was a unique thing that happened in this emergency of COVID. Our interlibrary loan or document delivery service, how we were handling curbside drop off and pickup of books, even mailing books to our students and faculty, as well as digital course reserves, looking at reserves and course items that might have been held at our reference desk or at our circulation desk, where students could come and check those out. So all of those things were considered. Now, looking at this is our UCF Library's homepage. If you notice here in the middle, there's this big blue bar. This is one of the things that we did to create basically a coronavirus update. So students could click on these links and get the most updated information. listed in either a website form, and you could actually go to these websites and take a look at more of our branding and the ways that we handled some of the messaging. We had a website as well as a library research guide through LibApps that we created through SpringShare to provide that continuity of services to let everybody know what was going on. And we had some, copyright clarification. We had a lot of information here on copyright to help our students and faculty and staff. These are some pictures of our spaces. We did do a huge unveiling. I don't know if you can tell between these pictures of the older furniture and the newer furniture here. We had a brand new opening of spaces, and unfortunately it coincided with COVID. So we have a lot of our new spaces, new furniture, beautiful new reading rooms, and we weren't able to actually do a huge unveiling and a wonderful reception because of COVID. So here are some of the messaging. Here are some of the social distancing that we're doing in the library. These are some of our newer spaces, beautiful furniture. Many of the notes that we put down here. Note this one that says maximum one person in booth, even if you live together. A lot of students want to say, oh, well, they're my roommate and, it's okay not to social distance. Well, that's what they all say, that we live together and perhaps they don't. So we're trying to make sure that everybody who's in the library is always wearing a mask and is always social distancing no matter what. So these are some of the images, some of the ways that we've had to pull our furniture and safeguard it in the middle of the hall because there's no storage space to put our furniture away, right? This again are some of the spaces. We have our beautiful new reading room here that is wonderful to see. Some of our other messaging near the elevators. And looking at our service desks, we have 3. Then we'll go into more detail about the reference area in our Knowledge Commons. This is where we do reference service. And we have 2 additional service desks. The first one is our circulation. And this is where you do the book checkout and the course reserves, paying our fines. And this is just one image of some of the barriers that we have up for to help protect our staff. And we also have a library technology desk here, which is the desk that circulates technology and IT service. And of course, each of the desks have different challenges and different ways that they are handling all of the concerns with COVID. So in looking at the spotlight quickly, these are some of our new challenges and unique things that are happening to us at our institution and as well as our state in particular. So back a few months ago, our Republican governor vetoed a $29.5 million package for our library consortiums, which affected K through 12 electronic resources, as well as all state colleges, as well as public universities like ourselves. Due to this, we've had some major budget deficits and cutbacks in the library, also just from institutional cutbacks because everybody's budget is a lot smaller. So we're having to cut $1 million out of our databases and journal packages, and we are now making those selections at this moment. So these are some really difficult times for our institution and for our library. We are adapting to changes in those state level decisions. Last Friday, our governor has now reopened. We're on phase 3 of reopening. Many schools and colleges and cities and states have not opened at all. We are now to the point where our restaurants and bars are open. We are going to almost 100% capacity at restaurants, and they are going to be taking away fines for wearing masks. So we'll see what's going to happen in our state in the coming perhaps weeks and months with this new reopening. Again, additional things that we will then have to deal with at the institutional level based on state decisions from our political leaders. Again, adjusting to institutional messages. We weren't going to be open after Thanksgiving. Now we've been told that the library will remain open from Thanksgiving into the end of the semester, dealing with other issues as institutional messaging and changes are being done on a daily basis. And then working through our workflows and processes across our service desks. How are we handling those changes and differences between staffing? How are we managing and handling the differences between our service desks? Then we'll get into more detail about that. And just in general, our challenges to ensuring students are maintaining compliance with wearing masks and social distancing. This is creating a huge challenge for our staff because we're not policemen, we're not security guards. And so therefore we tell students that they have to comply. As soon as we walk away, they take off their mask again. So these are creating some unique challenges for our staff and for our library administrators. And lastly, just keeping in communication. Our department has weekly departmental meetings. Tomorrow afternoon will be our next meeting, and it keeps us abreast of all of the things going on within our different departments across the UCF libraries. And thank you so much. I think I'm about at time. I'll await any questions, and may we all be well and stay safe through all these tough times. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Sandy. That was really great. You know, so many details regarding the physical spaces. This is something that actually our library is just in need right now, because we still be closed for the visiting. And actually, I'm not sure when we will be allowed to our users to come to the library, but there are many insights that I got from your presentation. So, and I think that we can discuss it further. And right now, let's go further, and let me invite to the stage Van Basco from the same University of Central Florida, United States, who will talk about the reference services, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Are you seeing my screen now too?
Yes, we can see and we can hear you well.
Okay, thank you. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak and present to this conference. This is my first time, and so it's wonderful to be invited. I know it's late, but I'm wide awake, so I don't have to worry about it. Again, my colleague already talked about the entire plan for the library, and so what I'm going to do is not really talk much about the library in general, but more towards how the department that we both belong planned on reopening. So again, my name is Van Basco, and I'm the engineering librarian, and I'm also the research consultation coordinator at the University of Central Florida Libraries. Now, to give you a perspective of how we plan the opening after the university closed in March, like Sandy said, and moved to working remotely, I will talk about the timeline of the reopening of the Research Information Services Desk in time for the campus-wide opening for the fall semester in August. So back in June, an internal task force for reopening was created, consisting of the Research and Information Services Department head, plus 3 coordinators, and that would be the Government Documents Coordinator, the Reference Schedule Coordinator, and the Research Consultation Coordinator, who happens to be me. And our task is to recommend the hours of service, the level of service that we should offer at the reference desk, the number of staff behind the desk at one time, whether we should include part-time or full-time librarians, what our budget's going to be for part-time librarians, the protocols for changing shifts, and safety measures are also considered. At the time, we don't have any idea about the hours the library will be open. Now, in addition, we also asked for suggestions from other librarians from our department, and that took them into consideration to come up with a draft resolution plan. And now the task force finally came up with a draft of the RAID reopening. We also know that the university administration, not the library, has directed all units on campus to work remotely if they can possibly do. And our department is complying with this directive, and we can recommend that we will staff without having a physical presence on the desk. So all librarians will remain working remotely, and we came up with a Zoom team virtual staffing model. So the RAID staffer can either use their camera to interact with the patron as they walk to the desk, or they can use an avatar if they don't want to show their face on the monitor. There will be a large sign next to the monitor stating an easy to read and understand 1, 2, 3 steps for immediate assistance. Now, we will have limited hours at the desk and much less than when the library is open. We will use the library website, the UCF, the university social media, the library digital signage, and referrals from other services desk, like as Sandy mentioned, the circulation and the LibTech desk. And those are both located on the opposite side of the end of the building. And those were two entrances. Now, the subject librarians would also publicize this service using their online fall newsletters, and whenever they do workshops, and whenever they do instruction classes. Now, all these recommendations were made by considering several factors, and those include, for all librarians, that they be able to participate the full extent of their AAPD assignment, which is the annual assignment position description that basically tells each librarian how many times they're supposed to be on the reference desk. We also consider the age or health profiles that prevent people from working on site, or whether they have small children enrolled in home-based online educations. And so anybody who's over 65 is automatically not allowed to be on campus, or anybody with pre-existing condition, and you have to identify whether you have one ahead of time. And that solves the problem of social distancing because nobody's going to be behind the reference desk. It also solves the problem about mask fatigue because no one is going to be wearing one while they're working. They're on television, they're on a monitor, and so they're at home working, and so nobody has to wear the mask. Now, in July, we started an on-site demo so we can evaluate this type of service and to continue to discuss further for other consideration that will come up. Now, we started with calling it the RAID Zoom, but instead changed it to telereference model, just like a telemedicine. So you're talking to a doctor on the other side of a computer. So this is almost the same service. We did our beta testing scheduled for all the reference librarian who will be participating virtually from July 27 to August 14, and only for 3 hours during the day during that period of 3 weeks. Now, to better understand how it works, we encourage the department heads and the staff from those departments, like government documents, circulation, the LibTech, interlibrary loan, and special collections, to stop by during those times at the desk for beta testing and ask various types of questions, directional and reference, to the telereference librarian who is on the opposite side of that monitor. And then we ask for feedback. So if there's any type that we need to do, or we're doing something right or wrong, then we ask for those feedback from them. Now, in August, before the school started, the library received another directive from the Associate Vice President and Chief of the HR office. They said on an email that telereference does not fulfill the directive that reads, "We must be prepared to handle requests made in person, as well as requests that may require staff to work on site to fulfill them." So to provide these services, all UCF offices need to begin providing an appropriate physical presence during the business hours. Since the library is open, so we need to have somebody at the desk, in addition to staffing the circulation and staffing the LibTech desk. And so we revised our plan. We will continue with the original telereference model, but in addition, we will have 2 on-site librarians, and those will be those who are willing to come to campus to volunteer, and they will be behind the scene in their offices during the RAID service hours. They will be contacted by the telereference librarian in case there's something wrong, and we provide them with our cell phone so that we can always assist whoever's going to be at the desk. Now, we also added a concierge librarian at the desk answering directional questions and referring patrons to the telereference librarian for research-related questions. Now, since the concierge librarian do not have access to computer, all they really can do is basically direct patrons to the telereference librarian or answer directional type of questions. And later on, we changed that name to reference ambassadors. And the plan was to hire student assistants who would serve as reference ambassadors. But since we don't have any students at that time to serve as ambassador, we use part-time librarians initially to schedule until all those student assistants were hired. So we put out an ad for student assistants. We interviewed them. Two of us were physically in the library interviewing student assistants. And in the end, we hired 4 total student assistants to staff as being our ambassador. Now, we surveyed the other 11 state university libraries in Florida, and none of them are actually providing this type of service to their university community. All are providing staff as a librarian only by chat, by phone, or by text. And so our final model, this is exactly what it looks like. You'll notice that here's the telereference librarian on one of the monitors. And this is the other monitor that basically views, that you'll be talking to, or the telereference librarian will be sharing information. We have hours posted in the plexiglass. Handouts are available that we take care of every morning. We have a sanitizer that the user can take advantage of. And then we have the ambassador right here. And pretty much she will be the one directing all the reference type of questions to the reference librarian, or she will answer any type of directional questions. And then here's a camera view of what the telereference librarian would see. And this is what it appears, or what it looks like when a patron come up to the desk. And you'll notice that the telereference librarian is always on the right. And then any information that she or he shares will be on the bigger screen. And then the patron will always going to be looking at the instruction, whether it's looking for a book, or looking for an article, or doing some additional type of research. It's almost similar to actually just having a body right at the desk, except that the person you're talking to is on a computer. And so this service is going on and will continue till the end of the semester, and we'll evaluate again towards the end. And another service that we're doing is called the virtual office hours. Now, this is available on the library homepage, where if you really want to talk to somebody, especially a subject librarian in your field, you can go to that page and look at the contact information. Like in my case would be my office number, my email, and then there's a link for my virtual office hours. So during those times from Monday to Friday from 2 to 3, and on Monday to Thursday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., you can go directly by clicking on the virtual office hours link, and I'll be on that side using Zoom. And if you're not available on those times, you can always schedule an online appointment. It's another virtual research consultation with me. So that's what we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Van. That's really great and exciting, to see how well is organized the reference services at your library. So, and I believe that we might have many questions how again, probably to detail something. Let's probably continue, right, our webinar. And the next presentation is the life with COVID-19. And we are going to talk about digital services, digital digitization, the processes, and let me invite you, Naishuai Zhang from Peking University Library, China.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you share your screen now? Yes. Great, we can see the slides.
Okay, thank you for your kind introduction. I'm Naishuai Zhang from Peking University Library, and I'm very glad to have this opportunity to share our experiences and practices against COVID-19. My topic is Live with COVID-19, digitization, digital preservation, and content protection. There are a lot of challenges that libraries respond to. I think we would all agree that the biggest challenge right now is the COVID-19. A lot of libraries closed their buildings in response to restrictions required by the government and to keep their users and staff safe. While we gradually reopen our library, there are still capacity limitations that make it not that convenient to access the physical collections as before. And besides the COVID-19, satellite campus is another challenge that libraries meet. Users based in different campuses, and this situation makes it harder to provide borrow services. Another challenge is the collection increasement. Physical collections increase almost every day, but building space doesn't. More and more storage buildings are engaged, and a lot of them are far from the library main buildings. All these challenges make the collection more difficult to get accessed. After the COVID-19 pandemic occurred, Peking University Library made a quick response. Along with all the online services, we released an on-demand delivery service for this after we closed our building. We developed a website to collect requests, include item info and users' addresses. All the books were collected, were fetched and packaged by a librarian wearing disposable surgical masks and gloves, and delivered to users outside their buildings. Where we traced the librarian's healthy condition every day, and none of our librarians was infected by the virus. Although this service could meet the reading needs of the library users, there are still some limitations. The first one is distance limitation. We could only deliver collections to users living around the campus. There were still a lot of students and faculty members that lived far from the campus or even in other cities during that time. Second is the collections limitation. There are a lot of collections that could only be accessed in the library building. On-demand delivery service could only provide access ways to a part of our collections. How could we provide more services when situations like COVID-19 happens? How could we support research and learning activities more? I believe digitization is an efficient way to increase the accessibility of our library collection. We had a digitization team with 10 team members before COVID-19 and got various kind of scanners that could digitize various kind of collections, such as Asian books, rabbins, maps, paintings, and newspapers. The COVID-19 pandemic occurred during winter vacation in China. Most of the students returned to their hometown to celebrate Chinese Spring Festival. After the pandemic occurred, all the teaching activities moved online, and some of the students even got new textbook. We provide a temporary scan and deliver service focusing on learning materials to support the online teaching activities. We have expanded our digitization team to 15 members after we reopen our building. The main purpose is to increase our digitization ability, to put more valuable collections online, and to prepare for pandemic getting worse again. We are now testing automatic scanners and estimating the possibility to release a formal scan and deliver service. More than 1,000 books borrowed a day from our library. We'll figure out how many users will use scan and deliver service instead of coming to our library and borrow a book. Since we digitized so many valuable collections, we want to ensure that the continued accessibility of all those digital materials. We definitely don't want to digitize those collections again a few years later, especially for some collections, such as newspapers published about 100 years ago. Lots of them are very fragile and may disappear forever in a few years or decades. We may have to estimate their condition and decide to digitize them right now, even if they will get seriously damaged during the digitization progress before they disappear forever. Digital preservation is an efficient way to protect digital heritage. We will treat digitization and digital preservation as part of our cultural heritage preservation program by reducing the actual use of the precious physical collections and adding another form of the heritage. Many libraries have done a lot on digital preservation. We are a little bit behind, and we are working hard. Here is the content protection part. So why we do content protection? The common practice is open access, and there are many standards, such as a FFF that's defined for subscribe and deliver images. It's mainly because it's part of our fundraising program. We collaborate with publishers to republish Asian books and raise funds to support our digitization program. According to our agreements with publishers, we could only open those digitized collections to our campus and should keep those materials from being illegally downloaded. So how we do content protection? We use a PDF format to deliver content, and we develop a website using a PDF web SDK to display and protect PDF content. It's basically a web-based PDF reader that allows users to view and annotate on the PDF. All the annotations are saved to database and could only be seen by the user him or herself. We are exploring the possibility of making some of the annotation public under users' permission and promoting exchanges and discussions among users. So here is a screenshot of the online PDF reader. We can perform almost all annotation operations that a local reader can perform. So that's all, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. This is interesting, right? The presentation, something that is like the trends, right, in the libraries. Meanwhile, let me encourage our attendees to ask questions in the question and answer box. We will discuss them just very soon because we have one more presentation, and I want you to join me in welcoming Annette. So yes, hello Annette.
Hello.
She's from University Library Hildesheim, Germany, and she's going to talk about digital coffee lectures and research data management online during pandemic times at the University Foundation, right?
That's right, yes. I'd like to share my screen. Wait a moment. I have to upload. It's...
Right. So we can see your screen and we can hear you well.
You can see this, you can see my presentation?
not yet presentation, but your screen. Right now, this is your presentation, I think.
Great. So I am very honored to be able to speak here. I'm very happy. I'm talking from Hildesheim in Lower Saxony, not far from Hanover in Germany. And I'd like to tell a bit about our situation at the university, in the library as well. It's a small university. We only have about 8,000 students and 560 academic staff, and only about 35 members of staff in the library. And I'd like to talk about research data management, how we've done it. I must say we have 4 faculties: education science, cultural sciences, political, language and information sciences. And now, of course, students and staff, they are required to wear a mouth and nose covering mask. It's compulsory to wear this in all university buildings and halls, staircases, toilets, lounge areas, as well as seminar rooms and lecture halls. And of course, the purpose is to protect the health and the prevention of spreading the virus. There aren't that many cases, but we've been careful all the time since the outbreak of COVID, and all events on the premises had to be cancelled. That means meetings and any group work by students on campus and in the university buildings was prohibited, but it's been opened a little bit more. Also, video-supported examinations started in the summer. The summer term was delayed. All lectures and courses started later. Here, the situation in general with COVID, it's very different in Germany. In the south, there's more COVID-19 cases, like in Bavaria, than here in the north. So here we've been lucky. Restaurants, bars, shops are open, but everyone is very careful. And now in the winter, autumn, more people are wearing the masks. So that's about the background. And I talk about the FAIR data, research data management. Despite COVID, we tried to push this further according to the FAIR principles. And I give you a little insight later. And some members of the university and the library in Astana even took part digitally, and I reached a really wide audience in this time with coffee lectures and other workshops. Yes, so this is our website, the research data management, and practically nothing much with research data management has changed so much. In fact, we reached a far wider audience with our offers. And yeah, we continue to give advice in research data management via Big Blue Button, also via Zoom, for example. And the winter semester will begin, so we continue with the research data management online, how we've done it. So that is really online and yeah, in digital form. Here's the University Foundation, the campus again. Usually it is really full, and now only a few students are there. And here you see where we are in Lower Saxony. Yeah, because of COVID, we had a hybrid semester, and we will have one now. Most students, though, work from home, but a few lectures are at the university campus here in the different buildings, and on site, and people keep a distance, wear face and mouth and nose protection, the masks, and we never know how it might change. So as I said, we've been concentrating to work to enable, make everything as possible, as much possible as we could, to be able to carry out similar work from home office. I've been in home office, in fact, since March. I've been back to the university library. As I said, we have about 35 members of staff. And in research data management, I communicate with our director there. And we have the so-called jour fixes and discuss about research data management and how libraries also change now in COVID times, in the pandemic. And then also in my field, research data management, we have been able to sensibilize the researchers by now, especially. It's so important to share data, to be aware of it, not only in health, but also in all the other subjects. So this is the second or main part really of the talk. We've continued. I was in Astana, which was great last year, to talk about normal coffee lectures, which are a very short format about topics along the data life cycle. And this has been carried out again in digital format. And here we see the slide from Forschungsdateninfo. It's a national platform in Germany for research data management. And these are the posters for the coffee lectures, now in digital form. We started teaching about research ethics, then planning and structuring was an important format or topic, preparing and publishing still. During COVID-19 at our university, we have Faculty One, and they are dealing very much with issues. It's an educational research about how young people, youth and children are dealing and also have suffered with COVID. And of course, they needed our library, and they needed the university publishing press to publish their work. And some asked me also how to publish the data. So on the left, these were the topics for the summer semester, and in the winter semester, everything will be online again. And we could reach a much wider audience, like not just the members of the 4 faculties, but also other universities in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, and in the world. There were some from London, Kazakhstan as well, to our because of our cooperations. And we will continue this, and I'm sure this is a lesson learned. We can continue this after the pandemic. This is an announcement. That is the first new or next coffee lecture that will start in October on the 28th. And we will be hearing a talk by the German Research Foundation about the news in research data management. And this is via BBB, very much like Zoom. Then we had a digital summer school. We had planned to have a data quality workshop first. That was supposed to be on site, and we were inviting keynote speakers, and that unfortunately could not take place because of all the rules and the distance and the protection measures. But we thought, rather than having nothing, we still try and work very hard so that the researchers can meet and talk about research data management. And we widened the subject and had 3 guest speakers, and that was in longer presentations, and we had 3 hours for this. This was the program. Claudia Kramer, KIT from Karlsruhe. She is very in the leader in the research data management in Germany, and so on. So we thought it's good to do something in these hard times. We all try our best to protect the students, to protect the researchers, also to protect the librarians, and to work together in the library, apart from research data management, because we are such a small library. For international students, websites had to be translated into English. So we were all given different tasks to what we normally do. And yeah, this was also part of my work. We always update the website. And yeah, it's very much to be alive to changes, engage and embrace and ensure, and yeah, all work together. And I think this is why the conference in Kazakhstan is such a great opportunity and chance. And I'm very happy to see what others are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annette. That was interesting to learn about your activities during these complicated times, but still, now I think that this is the time to discussion, if you don't mind. And I can see in our panel chat some questions. Some of them are already answered by our speakers, but probably we can start with this general, like the management question. And then I will ask Sandy to probably talk about some questions that you have received, right, and answer it. But I want you just to read them loud for the rest of our audience, okay? Okay, so.
Sure.
So let's see. The first one is, actually the question is for all speakers. Amidst the dynamic services that has evolved with the rise of this pandemic, is there still a threat for librarians in terms of workforce reduction or work hours being reduced in your respective institutions? Feel free to answer. Yeah, who's ready?
I guess I could go first. This is Raymond Pun, a school and academic librarian out in California in the United States at the Alder Graduate School of Education. And as I mentioned in my presentation, I am a solo librarian even before COVID and during COVID and right now. So the hours don't really change, but we do think about, like I had said, 24/7 service. So I know some of the universities have adopted question point, Ask a Librarian chat service that really supports, reference research support for their users. And we have a 24/7 writing tutoring support as well. So for my work, it's the hours fluctuate, but in terms of Zoom hours, we do, like I just was telling Ven earlier, I had done some Zoom hours, office hours before this webinar, this meeting in the evening here, because we have students who are still preparing. So the hours are geared more towards the evening, at least from my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. So anyone else can contribute to this discussion? Sandy, probably you.
Sure, and I wasn't sure if it was the question about the reduction of hours or which was the question?
It's about the changes in the work hours.
Okay, because I answered that one in the chat, and I read it more as the challenges of us having a threat to reducing our hours or things that might be a threat to our position. So the way that I answered the question is a little bit different than Ray, in the sense that right now we're not in any threat to losing our jobs perhaps, or being furloughed, at least at my institution. But with all of the challenges and with all the cutbacks, who knows what will happen in the future. There have been other university libraries in different states that have furloughed their employees or had them work one day less a week or 1 week less a month, and so therefore their income has been reduced. But so far we have been fine with those challenges. Today, actually, Disney World announced that they were laying off 28,000 employees, I think both in Disney World in Orlando, Florida, where we live, and also in California for Disneyland. So who knows how these kinds of effects in our local community might have on our institution in terms of different ideas for furloughing or for minimizing workforce in the future. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody's safe from anything at the moment or even in the future. We're just kind of taking things one day at a time.
Right. Okay, so another question was about the disinfection of the collections, right? And since you are right online, so probably you can continue with this. And then again, dear participants, you may raise your hand, and then you may even ask our speakers indirectly, not through even the chat box. So, okay, Sandy, please, about the disinfection.
Sure, and then maybe he can help me with this too, because he's on site a couple days a week. He might have a different perspective. We were just talking about this earlier, and I was asking, are we actually going in, our librarians or library staff going in and disinfecting areas and different things? And the answer was no. We basically have our UCF facilities team that is coming in more often than they used to disinfect. We have hand sanitizer available, Clorox wipes, different things like that around different service desks and different areas of the library. So our patrons can utilize those. Right now, we're quarantining all books that go out of our facility. Anything that goes out of our facility being quarantined for 4 days, which I think is about 96 hours. And even if it's someone who lives in the same household, they must wait that 4 days before they can have that item rechecked out. Those books are being put on carts. Carts are being put into a different space where they are marked and quarantined until that time has elapsed. In terms of our technology for the library technology desk, we're no longer, we used to circulate these headsets and different earphones and those kinds of things. Those things are not going out anymore. And most of the computers and iPads and technical devices that were a few hours of checkout are now being given out, I think, for like 48 hours or 24 hours. So the loan period has been extended so that we can help protect people from having those high touch, high frequency in and out returns. I don't know, Ben, do you want to add some more on this?
Yeah, you pretty much talk about everything as far as quarantining all the materials. The only exception would be those reserve materials, and before where people can actually check them out for a couple of hours, sometimes 4 hours. Now they limited the checkout period to 15 minutes for all the print reserve materials in the library. And so, and then, as far as being safe, there's a lot of, like as Sandy said, there's a bunch of wipes around, and you have the sanitizers. They're all over campus, and then the restroom, pretty much now they've converted everything to automatic, and so all the paper towels are now, you don't have to touch anything. It's all touch free. The use of the restroom is all touch free.
Great. New term, right? Touch free. It's something like incredible, really. I never think about this. So Van, could you please continue with the another question that was asked? So are there any significant changes in terms of research advising? So did it become heavy as everything went online, or students learned to be more independent?
I think, that's something you always wish for, is for students to be independent, right? As soon as you assist them, you hope that they don't come back and ask the same question all over again. But students being students, there's always some questions, and so what they ask you initially leads to another question. So there is a rise, because I'm the research consultation coordinator, so I get all the questions, even if they were sent directly to the librarians. I also get a copy of it. And what I usually do after that is I ask for feedback from students, how well they, the consultation went on. And so there are a lot more consultations going on. Although, before there are no more in-person consultation, everything is done by Zoom. And so everybody has to adjust. But it really doesn't matter as far as the type of whether it's in person or not. They still come to the library. There's always going to be research papers that's due. There's always going to be thesis and dissertation that the students will have to finish, and especially if they're on almost towards the end, they need all the assistance that they could get from the librarians. And of course, we always promote them. We all contact all our faculty members because we are now in the subject librarian model. It is our responsibility to contact all our faculty members in our discipline. If any of their students need assistance, they can always use the kind of all the services that we offer.
Right. Thank you for so
You're
detailed
welcome.
answer. Yeah. So any questions? Let me check the panel. So dear participants, don't hesitate to ask. This is the unique opportunity, to talk to our speakers now. All right, so that was another question to the University of California. Let me find it, I'm sorry. So how do you, no, disinfection. Okay. How do you recruit Armor Up ambassadors? Is there any specific criteria, and are they receiving incentives?
So I just read today about these Armor Up ambassadors. This was one of our COVID, as I mentioned, the messaging that our university sends out. So they just sent us a message that we have this new service, these Armor Up ambassadors. This is the first time hearing about it. So I'm assuming it's much like what our UCF libraries did in recruiting and hiring our RAID reference desk ambassadors. So I'm sure the university set out a call for a job. It's basically a job. Students are getting paid to do this. They send out the job announcement, the students apply, and then the students are interviewed and then given the position based on that. So in terms of incentive, I don't think that there is probably anything outside of them getting paid. I don't know if there's anything special, but typically our students don't get additional incentives like free tuition or housing or things like that unless there's something in a scholarship that they've obtained prior to attending the school. I don't know if Ben knows anything more about this, but it's a new thing and we haven't seen it in action yet, but I'm sure in the library, we're gonna have lots of activity because we have students in the library, both adhering to the masks compliance and students who are not. So I think this might help our student body really take on making sure that they comply, because if they're going to get some kind of reward, we don't even know what the rewards are yet. I don't know if, but it could be a gift card to a restaurant. It could be books at the bookstore. Who knows? I don't know what they're giving out yet or how much it is or what is the reward, but it's certainly going to have some kind of monetary, benefit, I'm sure, because that's the only way that we get students to do anything is if we give them stuff.
Well, I can answer a little bit on that one.
Okay, go.
Because I was on campus today, and so I noticed that there's a group of 3 students actually waiting outside the library, and they tried to talk to me and then thanking me for wearing my mask. But I just went straight to the library without really paying attention. So I know that they were giving something to the students who are actually wearing their mask. And so so they were hired probably by the student government. And so we are not responsible for them, whereas the ambassador that we have in the library, we have our own budget. So we hired 4 students to fill the position of library ambassadors.
Yeah.
I suppose real quick to add to that in terms of incentives, at least for our students who work for us, I know they can get one-on-one research help right there. So, knowing a librarian and having access to us a lot of times can be an incentive for students who work in the library at least. But otherwise, I guess that would be the only the only extra.
Great. I think that the next question can be the like really well fitting our discussion. So, are we going to rely heavily on providing remote access to our collections and services? We need to understand, engage our users. The question is from Venkat. So, what do you think? We are reopening, right? So we do understand the importance for our users of our physical collections, physical spaces, right? Physical in-person communication with librarians, right? But right now it's a bit limited. Do you think this might continue with the same conditions, or should we adapt them and continue transform, or we should still let's say hope, right, that the new normal is not actually the normal and the traditional library services will remain sometime in the future? So what do you think? So probably someone else may join the conversation. So actually, I would hear from Annette probably, because yeah. So the digital coffee, right, lectures. This is a good. Yeah, this is the good projects. What do you think?
Yes, I think we've learned a lot during the last summer semester, that it's still really good during COVID times, and that we can do this to engage the users, and that they actually wanted the exchange about library issues, about data publication, in my case, about research data management. And we started trying out different formats. The coffee lectures were almost similar to those coffee lectures, as we call them, as library itself. So it helped to give a short presentation and afterwards to have discussions. We've had the experience, if you had a longer workshop, like a digital summer school for the local people, no this time, but to give the students, the researchers, professors, and also normal citizens who are interested in RDM, the opportunity to come to us, to ask us questions. That is very good, and we are already planning for post-COVID times, what we can keep from now, what we have learned, lessons learned, and that especially in research data management, there are so many unsolved issues, like with metadata, discipline-specific metadata worldwide, where we do need standards and where communities can now come together. For example, in the social sciences, we had a lot of questions about discipline-specific metadata, which we, of course, in Hildesheim cannot answer, but we need other players in the libraries in Germany, but also internationally, because all the standards are globally. So this is the aim, that the research can be shared as best as possible, and that we can integrate people from everywhere. So this, I think, could and maybe should be like the new normal, which has been developed in these difficult times. And after COVID, we can cooperate and can do more together in that RDM, research data management field. I think I could have driven this a lot further forward. There were less distractions for me. I could really concentrate, and the students said to me, we've actually saved time. Even with the coffee lectures, we have different campuses, but they had to cycle to our library, which takes them 20 minutes, and sometimes that was too long for them and they didn't join. But now with the online formats, they had remote access and could participate. And then afterwards, what also happened, we shared more our presentations like on Zenodo or OSF.io we use, and everyone can read those presentations afterwards. So this has been really good. But of course, we all miss seeing each other, and yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We are missing each other. Yeah, you know, here they ask us to stop talking about the social distancing rather than the physical distancing.
Yes.
So that was like, you know, eyes opening for us. Sometime in April, I think, just after this quarantine period started at Nazarbayev University and in Kazakhstan. So that's it. Okay, so Naishuai, so probably you can join this conversation because you talked about the digitization, right? About the collections, but what do you think about the physical services still comparing to?
Well, how do I express myself? So, yeah, it's the physical collection, the physical space is, I think, is an irreplaceable part of the library, and we should open our library if we could keep our customers, our users, and our staff safe. And I think there are a lot of the COVID-19 is yeah, it's still ongoing, but I think we have right knowledge about it, and we can protect ourselves from being infected during our open time. So yeah, I think we should open our library, and under certain conditions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. But still, I think that this situation, the COVID-19, they just highlighted the importance of the preservation, archiving initiatives like in the libraries, the importance of digitization, but digitization also must be managed, right? So it's not just it should be planned, it's a kind of new strategies for the libraries, right? Did you change any in your strategies in digitization, let's say, like in your situation?
Digitization is is a supplement to our services, especially during the pandemic time when we closed the library, but we couldn't digitize all of our collections. So, I think it's illegal and is achievable. We should supply various kind of services, the physical space and the digital items. They could help our users in different ways. I think, yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you. So do you have any questions to other speakers? I mean, Because I'm asking because Ray, in the beginning of our session, he asked very, let's say, challenging questions, right? Like thought-provoking questions. So how should we be in the future? How should we work? How should we let's say design our instructions, right? How should we again continue provide the instructions for our users, again considering the changes in the considering
situation.
in the situation. So that's why I think that probably some of you have some thoughts on this to share with us.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that one of the changes that happened at my workplace with the instruction is that I had started teaching a privacy literacy workshop. So this is integral to information literacy. Privacy literacy meaning like being aware of privacy settings, whether you're using certain apps or devices that track your privacy, but just being also aware of basic settings. So like when we're on Zoom, for instance, is your information being collected? Is your camera off? Does it have to be on? So when we teach, you know, for the graduate students who are teachers, they are going online with students, right? Really young children at home. And so sometimes I think that there's some sensitivity because we don't necessarily want to capture that, you know, the images, the data of children, like in this Zoom setting. So we have instructed them to just be aware of the privacy concerns, privacy when it comes to online teaching. So it's so important because nobody was really thinking about it until it started happening. And some of the students have told me when they were teaching, they had, for instance, some of the parents were there and they were not, you know, like they didn't know that they were being recorded, like the camera's on. So there's just all this invasiveness that requires people to become more aware. So I'm curious if other people have started integrating that too.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely agree. So we have a question regarding the physical collections and new arrivals of books. Jamilu, I will allow you to talk. Could you please detail your question, or first, could you please share your experience, and then probably someone can answer your questions. Okay? Jamilu, please talk. Hello. So basically the question will, can certain conditions be applied in physical collection development, particularly when handling new arrivals of books? I'm not sure I understand this question, so that's why I asked for some details, but it seems that Jamilu has some problems to join our discussion. Probably the question is about how to handle the new arrivals of books, right? I'm not sure if any of our speakers are dealing with the physical collections and managing them. Yeah.
I could say just a little bit about this first in terms of the acquisitions. So I mentioned a lot of our resources there. It's a complete digital library, but we also do test preparation material. So to be certified as a teacher in the state of California, just like any other state in the United States, you have to take a test. So we provide testing prep materials. We would order it on Amazon or any other vendor, and we would ship it to the students. Now this part's interesting. What do they do with it? They could return it to us, right? That would be in the normal circumstances before COVID, but we don't know how to quarantine the items, right? And we're looking at the Realm project, the reopening of archival library museum collections, and how the virus could stay in the materials. But in terms of the test prep materials, we would have them hold on to it until the very end, and then we would bring them together towards the end of the year. But we may have to have them to hold on to it for a while. So it's a moving target, moving issue. So I can share that.
Great. Great.
I'm not I don't work for acquisitions in our library, but as far as what I was told, that we have the staff that comes in and open the boxes from publishers, and they don't do any quarantine, I believe, because after that is done, they go straight to cataloging for processing. Now, in most of the books that we order, I mean, especially in my field, since I'm in engineering computer science, I haven't ordered a physical copy of a book in the past 2 years. Most of my acquisitions are basically all electronic copies. It may have a few exceptions out there if the book is not in electronic copy. So that's the only time I'll buy one, a physical copy.
I understand. So, and we have the question to Mr. Zhang. So, can you read this question and can you answer it? Or should I?
Okay. Okay. The question is the challenges that we encountered, especially on information literacy. Okay. So the first challenge, I think, is how do we operate the massive digitization? We got a 15-member team right now, but it's very difficult to run this project. First is the digitization quality. Right now, we are trying to establish a quality examination protocol to make sure all the output is with the same quality. And now, second is the font. It's very expensive to do digitization. It's the equipment, the space, the salaries we pay to the team members. We are trying very hard to raise funds, but we do have difficulties to establish a efficient way to raise the fund. And another challenge is we provide services, especially in emergency conditions like COVID-19. We need a lot of support environment, such as systems and other mostly we should get prepared as soon as possible, but there are but we need to coordinate with the developers to develop a new system that could achieve our goals to offer the services. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, great. But can you add something, some words probably in terms of information literacy? Of course, if you have,
well,
or you are not really in this.
Yeah, I'm not really.
Right?
Yeah.
I understand. But as Ray mentioned already, right? So information literacy becomes even more important directions in the library's activities, right? Since everything is changing, and the privacy and the copyright, they just come in front of everything almost, right? And understanding of these issues, especially not only by students, but again, even even by children, right? And the faculty. So this is something very important in the new reality. So I cannot see any other questions that from our participants. Okay. No questions. All right. So I think we can just summarize our session, right? Unless you have anything to ask. No questions. So today we talked about the reopening of libraries in a new condition, in new reality. The reality which is well, virtual, but not all virtual, but with limited access to physical libraries as well. So the new conditions that are related to the understanding of this reality, critical perception of these conditions, right? By librarians, by our users, patrons, in terms of administrating library, in terms of managing the collections, managing the spaces, the services, and so on. If anyone want to add something to our discussion, like summarizing, probably stress some points, I just want to encourage you to talk, to give your message, you know, just at the end of the discussion. The message to our participants. Some final words, probably.
Yeah, I can leave something. I think in one of the last questions, there was something about engaging our users and the possibility of remote or electronic services moving forward. And I would say that just keeping in mind meeting our users where they are and basically adapting based on their needs. I know at least at UCF, because we weren't doing a lot of remote or online workshops, because they are now online, we have increased our attendance significantly in almost every session. Also, because of that increased online workshops, I'm getting more research consultations, I'm getting more traffic from faculty. So I think in some cases, it has increased my workload significantly. But as well, when we're done with whatever's going to happen with COVID, hopefully it will be done and we can go back to normal. You know, if our users still want us to do online things, then perhaps we should consider, you know, doing that. Again, meeting their needs, whatever that is. If most of our users say, no, we just want things in person because you have a smaller library, your situation's different. I think we just have to be ready to adapt and to allow for grace and allow us to be patient with each other and have compassion, as Ray pointed out in his presentation. There are a lot of challenges right now to everybody's mental health and home life, and a lot of challenges that everybody has to be aware of and to be considerate of others and not knowing exactly what they're going through is important right now. So that's my message.
Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that, if I may. I really agree with Sandy, and I've seen in our online formats how this can work, that we still have an open eye to all our users, that we, no matter what they need, really, sometimes they just have one question to do with their research, and then they need a bit of talk in these times where they're quite isolated as well. And yeah, we have seen also that certain things before COVID at our university or the library hasn't worked that well. There have been all these e-learning offers that you can do, but they weren't used, and now they are further used, and we help them to train how, if they want it, they can use like e-learning resources or other platforms that are available, or use open source products. That has been quite important. But really, be like your motto of the conference, engage and be alive, and maybe more than ever really fight this virus and come out with something good for all, and protect yourself and each other, and establish new formats, and short formats, as I've seen, have really worked, and the workload has been a lot as well here. I can it. I haven't had any annual leave this year, and really constantly working. So, but it's been worth it, and we can still build on this even after COVID times, I think, and mixing the old with the new, and yeah, who knows, there will be something else afterwards, something good that will come out of this.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I want to just add something. Pretty much, what Sandy and Annette said. But for me, and also the most important thing really is just be in addition to being compassionate, is just be flexible and just and understand the situation where the student is coming from. I mean, we are no longer working our regular 9 to 5 hours. Sometimes we have consultation hours that, like Ray or Sandy, they usually want the consultation as late as 9 o'clock in the evening. And since we're all working remotely, and it's possible to do it, so be patient and then just be flexible. In the end, it's not just you, but it's the student who benefit from it.
I like that. That's great.
Thank you. All right.
Should
So,
I? I was
yes,
just going to say
please,
really
please.
briefly, thank you all for your comments and for your questions. I don't see a way out of this. I unfortunately have to see it in a cynical way, meaning that I think even after, if let's say there's a vaccine and everything sort of slow adjustment to what we had before, I don't think the issues that were systemic will be addressed. I think they'll just be ignored again. The issues of digital divide, digital inequity, people will just pretend like that didn't happen. It has exposed a lot of issues around the world, particularly we have seen, as I said, in the United States. So I hope there will be some promising solutions, policy level funding issues to address it for all levels. But I also see an economic depression coming in, and that is something we all probably need to brace ourselves because that will affect every institution and every individual and how we support our services and manage our resources.
Right. Absolutely. As usual, Ray, you can make it, like very good summary of yeah. Thank you. So, and again, thank you for all our speakers and attendees for this conversation, for this webinar. Thank you for joining us. And I also, now I want you just to invite you to the closing ceremony of the conference, which will take place at 1 p.m. And the link was sent to you in one of our emails. If you didn't receive it, just let me know, and I will send this link to you. Okay. So thank you again. Have a good day. Have a good night, depending on where you are right now. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you from me, and all the best to everyone. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.